Alright guys, Papa Pepper back once again at the Abundant Harvest Homestead. Today I'm working on a project that has been a while in the coming, but what I needed to do was I needed to be able to get the resources to my property. I knew they existed, I just had to find them, locate them, and then get them to my property. Thankfully they are free resources, so I'm actually going to be working on a grow project, some of my winter preparation for the spring garden, but to help us grow and utilize our areas most effectively. We've got a number of poultry pens. I'm in the duck one right now, chickens are next door, and then the guineas are after that. Now these aren't just places for our poultry to live. They definitely are, okay? But they're also places for us to grow food. So you're gonna see things like peach trees inside our poultry pens. These are young, they're getting established. We're beginning to work on them. Another thing you're gonna see is things like plum trees inside of our poultry pens. Those are going to be able to provide food for our family in an area that's technically designated for, you know, meat, for poultry, for eggs, but it's also going to be able to let them, I think, grow better because we're going to have these animals constantly laying down fertilizer that these trees can suck up, and there's a decent amount of nitrogen that fruit trees are going to enjoy anyway. But if you look above me, I've got all this weird stuff up here. Can you see that? There's a piece of bamboo and a bunch of wires and all sorts of interesting stuff like that. And what that was is an opportunity for us to grow things. Okay, we grew some of these large dipper gourds that we got from Pa Mac. We grew some of those over the top of here, and I'm going to continue to develop it. What you see actually with the bamboo and wires I got is a prototype, but what I'm considering doing is growing a light canopy of food over the top of our poultry pens, and that way it'll provide some shade for the animals. It'll allow us to use all this area as somewhere that we can be growing food, but it'll also kind of have a bit of a physical barrier between any aerial predators like your hawks and your owls. So it's kind of multi-function. It's a way to stack some functions, multi-purpose. And you know, our land, if you guys are familiar with the channel, you're gonna have heard me say this before. If you're new to the channel, thank you for finding us. Feel free to subscribe if you like this stuff. It's just a family out in the middle of nowhere with 6 kids so far, just working on trying to live an intentional life that makes sense and take care of a lot of our own needs. But the thing that I'm going to say is we have 3 purposes for our property. Some are for us to be, some are for us to have animals, and some are for us to have plants. So plants, whether they're wild or whether they're you know, ones that we plant, we want them to be purposeful. The animals, whether they're wild or whether they are, you know, ones that we have domesticated, we want them to be here for a purpose. And we're actually putting a lot of structures in, like the little pond behind me, to diversify some of both the animals we intentionally have here and then some of the ones that show up here too. So with this, we have pretty much a large rectangle block sectioned off into 3 different sections, one for each of the kinds of poultry that we have living in them. The ducks, the chickens, and then the guineas. And on the outside, you can see I'm starting to make a raised bed. So I've got a mulched pathway, then I've got a layer of rocks, right about there, and then I've got the raised bed area I'm building up. Now, I did have this series of bamboo sticks. I'll show you real quick. If you look at these bamboo sticks are starting out about 18 inches and they're coming up to the fence. And what that allowed me to do is to start seedlings, or, you know, plant my seeds this far out. And then they could grow up to the fence above where the animals could peck them. By doing so, the ducks and chickens and guineas weren't reaching through the fence and pecking our little seedlings out. But what I'm going to do is, to make it even more effective, I'm going to take a series of flat rocks, like what you see here, and I'm going to pull back the rock layer I have on the edge. So I'm going to move these rocks back. I'm going to take the flat rock, stand it up against the fence, and then I'm going to put the other rocks back. And what that's going to do is have a physical barrier that any seedling growing down here will be able to get up over that, where the animals will have a harder time reaching it, and it'll be stronger, and it'll be able to grow up the whole fence without having the poultry eat it down to nothing. Now this is quite a row here. We've probably got more than 100 feet on this one. I'm not sure what it actually is. Yeah, less than 100 feet though. But I'm gonna have an actual row of rocks the entire length of this. And we do have some grapes here. I'm not sure if they're going to just stay here, if we're going to relocate them, but we do have some grapes already growing, and we still plan on growing some annuals up here and letting those kind of come across, like I said, and cover some stuff. So the project for today is to put in an attractive natural physical barrier with a free resource, these rocks that we have access to, along this whole side anyway. Get them all stacked up there, get them working, and by having them on the outside of the fence rather than on the inside of the fence, you're not going to have the animals on the inside jumping up on top of them, you know, because then that's just, they can get that much higher up off the ground if they jump on top of the rocks and then either fly out or peck through or stuff like that. By having it on the outside, I think, is the way to go. So I'm going to get my truck up here, unload some extra flat rocks, and see how much of this we can run out today. But it's just a way to try to use what we got here in the Ozarks. We got a ton of rocks that comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, from flat ones to round ones to ones that pretty much look like bricks, which are rather impressive, and put them to use. And then over time too, as the raised bed gets built up, it'll probably become deeper and deeper, and we can just kind of either hike those up a little bit or however we want to do it, but it'll still be a lower ground level inside of the poultry pen, so it'll be harder for them to reach. So that's what we're working on. It's a good way, I think, of trying to utilize everything the best that we can and have things work in a nice harmony where it all works together, and we kind of get the most bang for our buck. You know, we've got population density on our property of about 1 person per acre, and there's a lot you can do on a very small amount of space, but I want to make sure whatever we're actually crafting and working on and, you know, manipulating, messing with, designing, investing our time and effort in becomes kind of as good as we could possibly have it. So I did wind up about 6 feet from the end with that put down so far. I guess this has got to be at least 40, 50 feet worth. But you can see from this side how it looks, and as they settle in and as I build up this soil here, the growing medium, I'll pull those little rocks out to use elsewhere. They're just holding them in place for right now. From this side it doesn't look, you know, the most impressive. I will 100% agree to that, okay? But it does serve a purpose, and I'm thinking from the inside we can see it even more about how far up really that is. And what I did too is I put a layer of rock pretty much on each side of this fence, just like my perimeter fence, because I didn't want things digging in or digging out. So in some of these areas we're almost 2 feet high from the actual ground level to the top of those rocks. They obviously change a little bit as they go through, but to me it creates an interesting look. When we've got crops growing over them, you won't notice them as much, but it's just one way to help stack functions, and again with free resources that we have available to us. These rocks I was able to pick up for free. I've still got more in the truck. I just got more sorting to do, because I've got a number of rocks for different projects too. The bigger, thicker ones we like to use as stepping stones. And once I get all this organized, I'll have an actual path that'll help the children know where they're kind of permitted to walk through here and where to stay out of. They'll just kind of follow the path. And then the smaller, flatter ones, or the bulkier ones, are going to be used as we continue to build these raised beds. I mentioned some that kind of look like bricks before, And here's one example. This is a big, thick rectangle. It's pretty uniform. This is a smaller one that's a little similar, but it's kind of almost like brick shaped. And there's a number of those in here, various places too. So guys, that was just part of one of my projects today. I've got some more to do. I'll spare you guys. But it's just a way to kind of think like, we did pretty well with the things we grew. We grew some noodle beans and some mosaic long beans too. We just listed those in our Homesteaders Co-op store where people can pick up the seeds from there too. And then also snake gourds and the dipper gourds, we all grew on this canopy, and this wall was a lot of the bitter melons too. So that was really cool to see. And I like the way it filled in. As we continue to progress, you know, anywhere that we don't need to walk or drive should hopefully be able to produce some sort of food, or, you know, either for us, for the animals, for pollinators, for whatever it may be, and have a purpose. So just one small project, but as we kind of continue through this, guys, and as I'm able to work so hard here when it's technically winter, it's 60 some degrees right now, I'm doing just fine in a short sleeve shirt, to really prep and prepare for spring. I can't wait to see what this looks like. And we've only been on this property, since we moved on, about 1.5 years. It's been a lot of work so far. We got a long way to go, but that's my project for today. Again, I thank you guys for joining with us. I thank you for your support, for your comments, and you know, honestly, we're trying to grow this channel right now. I've got a couple things I plan on doing just besides kind of what we've normally been up to. But if you know anyone who enjoys any of the things you see us up to, feel free to you know, share or mention us to other people, and it means a lot to us. Love you guys, thank you guys, appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. Papa out. So a little bonus for anyone who stuck around after the pop out. I don't know if you can see this thing. It's over 4 feet long. Most of it's over 1 inch thick. But this is originally what I was going to use like for a bench up in my garden. Was to take just a big board, a big rock. It pretty much filled this back seat, and use it. So to get that gift the other day was pretty cool, and it means I can use stuff like this for other projects. So we'll see what we come up with. I'll see if I can get a picture of me standing next to it for you guys. You guys see that? That is awesome, and it's thick. Some places, wow, it's 2 inches thick in some places. So that's pretty cool. Might have to put in a second bench somewhere. This could definitely work if we treat it with care. Have enough support for it. We'll see you next time. Oh.